Hello and welcome back to Beers, Bourbon, and Games. I'm your co-host Mike, and with me is
Conquer Corey.
And it's the holidays. And the holidays mean depression, anxiety, and
Gift giving.
Gift giving! Gifts! Yeah, gifts! And I don't know if y'all remember or not, but there's a guy that shows up on the channel a few times. His name is Big Jim. He's my brother. This is him? Yes. Look at that. That beautiful, beautiful specimen of a man. Sorry, ladies, he's taken. But Big Jim is a very big fan of the Game Boy SP. And he likes the Game Boy SP, but there's a mod that's out that he's been really, really bugging me about to try to make for him. He's like, let me know when you want to do it. I'll buy the stuff and get to it. Well, it's the holidays. So I thought, why don't we actually fix it up? So I, being the great and benevolent big brother that I am, went out on Black Friday and tried to find a working Game Boy SP. I happened to find one. I found a black one. It's actually in really good condition, which makes me very sad that we're going to rip this apart and destroy it. Put it inside this case. Now, you may ask why this color. Well, as you can see from this big, beautiful picture again, Big Jim loves his truck a little too much. Little too much. But this is the color of his truck. And we got some black buttons to go with it to kind of match. So we're excited to kind of do this mod. Now, the cool thing about this mod is there's a few different extra things you can do to it. You can add a headphone jack, which didn't come in the SP model. You can also add a USB-C charger, which didn't come in the model. You can add a bigger battery for longer battery life, which is really, really cool, but we're not going to do any of that. He's not been good enough this year to have that stuff. No. All we're going to do is we're going to transplant this into here and have the upgraded screen.
The best part about this too is it's no soldering required for this kit, at least for what we're doing, which makes it a very good entry-level DIY project. And we also saved a little bit of money by going online and 3D printing some parts.
Right. So what you need for this is, I will leave a description or a link to where you can get these parts at. But you'll need the aluminum kit. This is a really, really nice aluminum shell. You need the full aluminum kit. You need your donor SP. Random game. You have to have the buttons that go with this. You need a new ISP screen.
IPS.
Oh, sorry, IPS. What did I say?
ISP.
Oh my God. IPS screen, which you can all purchase from the same place. If you're not going to use the bigger battery, you have to have this part, which you can buy from them, or, like Conquer Corey's saying, have a friend that has a 3D printer that uses it and have him print it off. Same thing with a spot to cover the 3.5 jack and the USB-C port if you're not using those, which, again, he's not been good enough. He doesn't deserve those.
We're going for authenticity here more than...
Yeah, yeah. Those mods require soldering, so it's a little bit more in-depth work if you're going to do that. But I'm kind of excited to see how this turns out, aren't you?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's go.
Okay, let's get right into it. So just a normal Phillips head screwdriver, small. We'll get this back cover off. While you're getting this battery out, I recommend checking to see if it's bloated or anything, because they're pretty cheap to replace nowadays. Or you get the bigger battery for this mod. Now here's where I discovered that I'm in trouble. I actually need a special Y-bit for this. So after a quick trip to our local Harbor Freight store right before it closes, we managed to get a hold of one that has it. So you remove the remainder of the screws on the back. There is 4 more. Then the back just pops right off. And don't be dumb like me and just flip it right upside down so everything falls out. I recommend putting them back in there so there's an easy place to put. Here you're going to remove the left and right bumpers. Make sure you get those metal rod pieces. We will need those later. It's very important. The spring is we're not very worried about because this mod doesn't require them. Now this is the heat shield you're going to remove. There is 2 screws on here. It requires a Phillips head. And set these screws to the side. I end up having to reuse these screws in my Boxy mod, even though there's screws that are supposed to come with it for the mod itself. There's 3 screws on the motherboard you need to remove. 1 in the center and 2 on the left and right on the bottom. and the board just kind of pops right out. Be careful not to pull too fast or do what I did here and flip it up and all the buttons go everywhere. We'll just, you know, ignore that, not tell anybody. You're going to pull off these little rubber membranes and set them to the side. You will need those for the mod. You also need the speaker that's in the top there, which I'm being very careful to pull out. Now you're going to have to remove that ribbon cable which is attached to the screen. Use a little tool like I did to press up the bars and that will pop them off. You will also need on here the power switch, which I will show you in a sec here. You'll be using that for the mod also. Alright, now we're ready to start putting it into the new shell. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the speaker and we're going to put it down into the mod. Make sure the contacts are facing towards the motherboard so they hook up. And with this mod, you have to use the Boxy Pixel buttons. You're going to put the directional pad, the A and B, and then the last 3 buttons are pretty much interchangeable. They're pretty easy to find which way to go in. Now you're going to grab those membranes I told you to set to the side, and you're going to place those back onto the buttons just like they were on the original SP. You'll notice me going through here, there's a little trial and error with this. Some of that we talk about later. Some of that is just as you're going through it, you got to remember where you put your parts. I recommend taking a sheet of paper and actually having them laid out on it, kind of with your screws and stuff to kind of help you figure out where things go. Now we're going to push in the USB-C and the audio jack the filler parts, whatever they're called, because we're not actually installing those mods on this one. One thing I do recommend when you're putting this in, taking a small dab of glue, super glue, and putting it into there so it stays in there, because they do tend to pop out easily if not, but with a small dab of super glue, where this is an aluminum case, if you decide to install them later, they pop right off really easy. Now we're going to install the diffuser that comes with the kit. This is just for your on and your charging and power light buttons, so they show up. It just slides right in there. Now let's set up this new IPS screen. I said it right this time. Look at me. So you're going to attach the ribbon cable to the motherboard. It just slides right in there just like all ribbon cables, and then the latch pops down on top of it to secure it in place. It's not a hinge. It actually, there's 2 buttons on either side of it that kind of push in. So kind of be careful with that and make sure you don't accidentally rip it. Now we need to attach the screen's motherboard to the screen itself. What I recommend here doing is putting it on a little bubble wrap so you don't worry about the screen, and then there's just a little piece on the corner that attaches to the little screen's motherboard. It's kind of hard, but once you get in there and line it up perfectly, it just snaps right into place. Just be very careful not to press too hard on the screen. That's what I'm doing there. I'm very paranoid I'm about to break it. But once you get in there, it clicks in, you're done. Now you're going to put the screen and the motherboard into the Game Boy. Pull off the screen protector, set it down right into the slot where it goes in, and then you should see the motherboard should pop right into the slots on the Boxy Pixel. Now when you're putting this in, be careful with the ribbon cable. Don't bend it completely, because you might actually cause it to break connections in there. Just kind of fold it like you see I have it there, kind of like rolled over, not actually completely folded. Now, when you're attaching the motherboard to the Boxy Pixel, there's only 2 screws that are required instead of 3. There's the one in the center, and I think it's the bottom left-hand corner. Yes, I'm right. Yay, look at me. I remember for once. One of the big things I want to tell you about in this mod, do not screw the screws all the way in completely tight. Give them a little bit of room. Don't push it in too far, or the membranes on the buttons won't press in. Now we're going to install the back of the screen. You just want to be careful. Watch that ribbon cable, and it just slides right in. Just like that, slides in. I'm admiring how beautiful it is already. And now you're going to attempt to find the correct screws to put in the top to lock it into place. This is going to be becoming a common theme with this build, where the correct screws are going to be hard to find. They're not labeled very well, and the kit doesn't explain it. And even online, when you're looking at the kit paperwork, it's not very self-explanatory, and we talk about that later in our review. But Just don't try not to get too frustrated with it, and once you find them, they're good. Now you're going to take the silver bars that came off the shoulder buttons, and there's 2 slots on the back, little bitty holes that they slide right in. And then this is me trying to figure out left and right. Left and right shoulder buttons go on their respective slots. You do not need the springs again on this one. The way this mod's set up, you don't need the springs. Now we're going to work on the back. First you have to install the heat shield on this one. It requires 1 screw on the right side, as you see there. Again, you'll notice me having trouble finding the correct screw. We ended up using one of the original ones from the original Game Boy, which is fine. That's why I recommend hold on to those. The other side does not have a screw port, so I recommend taking a little dab of glue again to put it on there. You're going to get some wiggle and some noise with yours. And if you're anything like me, that gets annoying after a while when you're playing it and shaking it. So I'll recommend, like I said, doing a little dab of glue on the heat shield on the left-hand side, and that'll help out with that. So once that's done, honestly, it just falls right into place, except for the button on the side. The installation of the button is a little tricky. You have to make sure it's in, I think we found it to be in the off position, is what made it really easy to actually install in here. It's because of how it's set up and how there's the actual physical click with it. That's built into the Boxy mod and not just the button itself. So once you kind of play with it a little bit, then it just falls right into place. Again, do you some exploratory surgery here to figure out which screws go to where. A big common theme with that. But you're going to put all 4 screws in this. Okay, now we're ready to install the battery. Like I said, I grabbed the new battery on this one because my other one was a little puffy. Trimmed down this 3D printed piece that Concord Corey is nice enough to make for us. This piece, you only need this piece if you don't use the expanded battery that you can get from Boxy Pixel, but the expanded battery requires some soldering, and again, we wanted this to be a easy, I don't know how to solder installation. Once you put that into place, it holds the battery in, it's good to go. You find your screws. Again, you play screw roulette. More unfortunately, if you're like us, and the screws did not get sent with this one, or the holes that were drilled were too big. We ended up having to use special screws that we had for an M2 drive from our motherboard boxes to actually make this work. But other than that, after you do that, it should be good to go. You turn it on, make sure all the buttons work. If it's not working, you want to go back and loosen up the motherboard a little bit because you probably have it too tight if the buttons don't recognize.
Whew. Well, this is a bugger. I kind of tried to make it easy on the walkthrough about how to put it together, but there were some major glaring issues with this. First off, they send you a bag, a bunch of screws. A bunch of screws, way more screws than you ever would need. And unfortunately, most of them weren't right. Especially in the back, as you probably saw in the video, I think we talked about. These weren't machined right, so all 3 sizes of the screws they gave us didn't fit. I ended up having, luckily I had some M2 screws that I was able to use on these. They're a little bit big and they kind of stick out in the back, but they work. One other big issue that I like to point out is this LED screen that they recommend for this, that they sell on their website and say, hey, buy this with this. It's too small, thick-wise. There is supposed to be a part that goes with it that is a
foam-like
adhesive that goes on the back of it. Nowhere to be seen in my pack. One other big issue I'd like to point out is when you're screwing in the motherboard onto here, and I think I talked about this, just want to reiterate it, don't screw it down all the way. It causes the buttons on the left-hand side not to work because it smushes the membranes down too much. That's not in their instructions anywhere. That's not in anything. That's just something that I found with trial and error. Other than that, once I got it all together, it's beautiful. It's really nice.
How many times did you have to take the thing apart, though?
I think
After putting it together.
I put it together and took it apart probably 6 times. Trial and erroring.
And one thing to point out, like I said, it while it does look good, it's not exactly the most beginner friendly thing. The only reason that Mike was able to troubleshoot a lot of this, and it took us both looking at it sometimes, like it took us forever to figure out the screen issue. We couldn't figure out why the screen was wobbling like it was, and we figured out, oh, it's too thin. And it really boils down to the part that they have at the time. Apparently there's multiple sizes. There's some that are thick enough, some that are not thick enough. We just lost the lottery on that one.
Yep.
But Mike and I have a little bit of experience now kind of working with consoles, and so we had to really lean on that. That past experience was great. Mind you, there's others out there that are leagues above us that probably wouldn't have had a single bit of problem, but Mike and I are kind of new into this area, and we really had to tap into our knowledge of what we've learned so far working on modding consoles to be able to make something work. We literally took one of the foam pieces that the screen came wrapped in. We literally tore it, folded it, and put it behind the screen to hold it in place.
To make it hold in place. And they sent it with static foam, so we didn't just put like random stuff in there. It was static foam. We did make sure of that, but we had to put that in there to stop the screen. Like it
made that horrible clicking noise when you would
it would just fall back. Oh yeah, there's a horrible clicking noise. The heat shield you have to put on here, that's what I couldn't find. That's part of why I took it apart so much, is there was a clicking noise when I shake it. The heat shield also, the screw for it on the back was not threaded correctly. So all the screws you put in didn't work.
We'd watch. We were going through literally hand picking every single screw and just watching it fall into place. No resistance, no catching, and that's when Mike had to actually get the M.2 screws from his motherboard box.
Yeah.
To
work on the back here
to do it.
But the heat shield part in here, I ended up having to super glue into place. I couldn't do that with these screws because these got to come off to replace the battery and stuff eventually, or if you want to do more mods. But I had the heat shield that goes in here for the games, I had to super glue it on there. And then I had to use a slightly bigger screw, get in there. It still wouldn't thread all the way. And then I used super glue around the edges to make sure it stayed. So,
like I said, there are some quality control issues here. If you get one of these, just be prepared to have to get creative.
Or send it back. I'm sure the company, if I said something to them, would be like, ship it back, we'll give you a new one, no problem.
But due to timing and holidays, there's no guarantee you'd have it back.
The issue is this is a gift, and I want it to be ready for the person on Christmas Day. I want them to be able to use it and try it out. You know, this guy.
But yeah, like I said, it just, if you have experience with it, go for it. If you don't, just be prepared. Don't be overwhelmed by it. I'm pretty sure Mike was ready to throw some things.
I was there for a while, especially when stuff wasn't working, because I did a lot of research on this before I bought it. Everyone else is saying they were having a great, easy time with it. It was going good. Maybe I just got a dud. It's 100% possible I got an issue dud. I mean, and I don't want to just crap on it, because after it's together, the new IPS. Okay, that's it. Yeah, IPS.
You're right. IPS.
The new IPS screen is beautiful. It looks really nice. It's really great.
The colors are really good on it.
Yeah, the colors are really bright. There's a brightness button that you can do. That required some soldering, and that's one thing we wanted to do in this build is no soldering, because if you're new to this, we want you to be able to do this straight out of the bat. Soldering takes a little bit more work, and I want to build another one of these, and we will do the soldering. Or if Big Jim decides he wants to have these extra mods, we'll do it for him, and we'll do the soldering. We'll show you that. But it looks really good. They sent the diffuser for free. It lights up perfectly.
Like how it feels like the old Game Boy.
It does, and that's one thing I really like about it. It feels like a good old Game Boy. I like it. It's a little bit smaller. We can compare it.
Really good.
We can compare it in size here. So, like, of course, when it's clamshelled, it's about thicker, and then
I know what's reminiscent of the old Game Boy Pocket.
yes, exactly.
My first Game Boy Pocket was green.
Was it?
Yeah, this kind of brings back memories for me. Too bad I'm an emulation person. No, but from speaking as an emulation person, this is very nice. I could see nostalgia collectors. Like honestly, if I still have my Yu-Gi-Oh cartridges that didn't get lost over time, I would be burning this bad boy up. Like I'm talking Yu-Gi-Oh, the Sacred Cards, Ray Chef of Destruction. I'll be burning this bad boy up. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it is cool. You can get a bigger battery.
Yeah.
You do have to, if you use the default battery, which is what we opted to do.
Requires no soldering.
You have to. The bigger battery requires soldering. You have to print. You either have to buy or you can 3D print. We opted to 3D print to save a little bit of money, and it worked perfect. It just fit back in. Just make sure you got your trims cut off good, and it'll slide. Literally, its whole job is to hold the battery
in place,
from popping up.
That's it, because the space is larger for the larger battery, but the 3D printed stuff to cover the holes, the USB-C and the headphone jack. If you use those fit in there perfectly. I did use small dabs of glue on those to hold them in place because they would pop out. But if we ever want to do it again, that you can just pop them right out with the glue.
But all in all, like I said, we're willing to put like Mike said, put the things aside that maybe we just had these things happen. Quality control issues. We're willing to defend that. But, it's just that if we didn't have the knowledge that we have now, I don't know if we would have completed this project.
No, I don't think we could have. It's all the years, and we're both in IT. That's what we do for a living. It helped us kind of do that, and I had the extra screws on hand, or we would have been SOL.
But all in all, I think it'll make a great gift for somebody. If you're thinking about doing that, you have a knack for this. I think if you have a collector or someone in your family, I think it'll make a really good gift. Now, how much did all this cost you?
The kit itself, that's the screen, the IPS screen. I don't know why I keep saying ISP. IPS screen, the buttons, the metal buttons, and the metal aluminum machined case is total $150. That's all the parts put together. The screen's like $35. It's $95 for the full metal kit, and the buttons are like $20. But go back to an earlier point. While we were checking on that, we did verify that spacer that we said we needed.
It's a separate. It's $1.80 that you have to pay. That they could have easily included in there.
Yeah.
Now, Boxy Pixel, I'm going to grill you a little bit on this one because I know how much probably that foam cost you. And for the price that you're paying for these materials, it probably should.
Yes.
With the LCD. If you buy the case, okay, we'll forgive that. But if you buy the LCD, that should come included. And a couple things I do have a knock on as well that I just happened to notice here because I didn't realize this when Mike asked me to print this. The battery spacer is $4.20.
Yep. This piece, to
give you kind of a perspective, I printed that from my materials. You know how much the cost was? Maybe 30 cents.
Yeah.
Material.
The USB-C port itself is another $3, and then I think the audio jack is another $3.
Yeah, and then there's replacement machine screws, which I am really hoping is not those screws that we needed to buy for that.
I really hope it's not that, because if it is, that's horrible. I was really excited when they sent. There's a diffuser that goes here that you have to use on this instead of cutting tubes on the from the original one that comes in this. They gave you that for free. So I'm kind of wondering if all this other stuff is stuff you had to pay, and they were like, "Oh, my bad."
But like I said, it is a good product. I do feel that they kind of nickel and dime you.
Yes.
They should all bundle it together at a discount. I believe.
Yeah, I agree.
It seems like everything.
Or at least have a warning, because like when you go to check out and you buy this, it says these are parts you need to go with this, and the buttons are listed. You have to have the buttons. It says You have to have the spacer if you need it. You have to have these if you're not going to have the stuff in it. It says that. It didn't say anything about
The foam spacer.
the foam spacer at all.
And so, like I said, it maybe they're anticipating people that do this are experienced, but I don't know. It just feels like they charge you $1 to open the door, $5 more to sit down, and then $3 to go to the restroom.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. But it is a good product. It seems to work really well. It's just that if anyone from Boxy Pixel is watching this, maybe make a bundle to where if someone's wanting to buy a holiday gift, just put every one of the items in the bundle and disconnect. Like for real, give the plugs for free, because I know you're 3D printing those.
Yeah. And I think it even says 3D printed thing on it.
And maybe it's out of ABS, which is a little bit more expensive than PLA, but it's still even ABS. These things didn't take long at all to print on my Viper. And it, like I said, pennies is how much it cost me to print that. That's all I got for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to harp on it too much because I honestly like the finished product. It's beautiful. It's metal. It's really, really solid. And, I mean, you're going to pay more for the metal. So, I mean, the price tag doesn't actually shock me, because we looked at other ones that were even more expensive. But not having everything that you need, that bothers me. Well, that's about it. Just let us know what you think in the comments down below. Are we dumb? Is there something we missed? Was it on the website? Because if we overlooked it, I want to know. And like I said, I'm going to contact Boxy Pixel and see what they say about this stuff, because it'd be great to hear. And maybe we'll do a follow-up video on it, see what they say. But the big thing is now we got it ready for Christmas, for him to open it up. And I am ready to see what he thinks about it. We'll do some close-ups of it, and then let's see what he does.
Can I,